Hey, welcome back. I hope that in other lights what I'm wearing is purple. Unfortunately, it's red. But it's International Women's Day today, and the entirety of this week and this month will be just championing the conversations when it comes to inclusion and equity for women, and just talking about inclusion for them into public space, leadership roles, and more widening the gap when it comes to the gender pay gap. To that effect, we have another conversation in line with our International Women's Day extra special for you. This time, we want to talk about women and the diaspora, and this time bring a different perspective on gender equality when it comes to women and the diaspora. To do that, I first have with me, as she joins us live via video chat all the way from the United States of America, we have Joi John. She's a political analyst based in the US. Miss John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Janet. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Also joining us is Councillor Lade Olugbemi. She joins us live all the way from West Thamesmead, United Kingdom. Councillor Lade, thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Let's get started. I'm going to start with you, Councillor Lade. Women and the diaspora often bring a different perspective to this discussion when it comes to gender equality. How would you compare the challenges faced by women in Nigeria with women in the diaspora?
The challenges are very similar. The main difference that I see is that there certainly has been a longer time that women in the diaspora have been fighting for equality and also equity. I'll try to major in more on the word equity, but we'll talk about that later. Over here, we still have the systemic barriers like women have in Nigeria. We still have gender-based violence. We still have discriminatory policies. We still have them. We still have cultural expectations that are quite negative and sometimes sidelines women. But one of the things that we have, the main difference here is that we now have formal protection that women have, formal protection against gender-based violence. For example, in the UK, we have the Domestic Abuse Act that was enacted in 2023 that gives a lot of protection to women. However, it still doesn't take away the fact that we still have a lot of gender-based violence. We still have pay disparities. We still have lack of access to funding, and we still have bias in leadership promotion. It's kind of general. However, the main difference that I see and I've experienced is that we have a structure, we have a policy that has been put in place, and we continue to push. And that's why I like the theme for this year's International Women's Day, which is about accelerating the action. We've spoken about it for too long. We now need to start putting action plans in place and actually following them up.
Ms. John, I have to also ask you as well. Do you have any to add to the list of challenges that women in diaspora face compared to women in Nigeria?
Well, absolutely. Well, I'll start by saying that women all over the world face gender inequality, but the challenges vary in scope and context. Now, in Nigeria, we look at structural barriers like legal inequalities, economic exclusion, and cultural norms that limit women's progress in the corporate world and political setting as well. But just like the councilwoman said, here in the United States as well, despite the legal protections in place, women, especially Black women and immigrant women, still struggle with systemic biases and underrepresentation in leadership. But the key difference here is the institutional support she spoke about, and that has played a significant role in creating opportunities. And today, young girls have powerful role models like Kamala Harris, who ran an exceptional U.S. presidential campaign. We have President of Tanzania, Samia Hassan, Aisha Braveboy, who is very much on her way to becoming the next county executive for the state of Maryland, and so many women, Joyce Banda in Malawi, and I can go on, but these women show that despite the challenges in place, or the challenges that women go through, women can still break through the barriers and lead with resilience.
I'm so glad you're talking about representation, because that takes me to my next question about representation in leadership. It's a major issue. Despite this women, representing and, showing up and putting their best foot forward and just being role models, you just paint a picture that is even extra hard for immigrant women and women of color, and diaspora. If you're an immigrant woman, a woman of African descent, or women of color, it's 2 times harder than the other women who are, whether of Caucasian or of different race. So, and so it begs to ask the question: how then can they stand up? How then can we, restructure the system to better aid them to come up to their full potential? Ms. John, I'll start with you.
Yes, I think one effective strategy has been implementing mentorship and sponsorship programs where you have senior leaders actively champion and guide women into leadership positions. We don't see that. Sometimes women take the seat away from the table. They hinder others from joining them on the table. But, the sky is too big. It's too big for every one of us to accommodate every one of us. So we have that. But representation grows when we actively support women at every stage of their career, be it in politics, be it in the corporate field. And I'll also add that promoting inclusive policies, fostering a culture of accountability and performance assessments, and being transparent also has proven essential in ensuring women's advancement in key leadership roles.
And Councillor Lade, I have to ask you as well. Ms. John just said something. She said, these women would, come up to the table, they get a seat at the table, and they take the remaining seats off it, right? So how then can we change that? Because we're seeing this here in Nigeria. I wonder if it's the same in the diaspora. And yourself being a councillor, in a government that is very much predominantly, of different races, how is that like for you? And what was it like, getting to the position that you are? And what would be your takeaways or your advice to women who look up to you?
It's about mentorship. I totally agree with what Joi said earlier. Mentorship is really, really important. It's one thing that I believe got to be structured. We have to have what is called structured leadership, where in the workplace, we have specific programs. It's also about policies, workplace, in my own opinion. And I believe for us, part of the action that I'm hoping a lot of us will take away from the theme of this year is making sure that workplaces have gender policies around maternity, policies around menopause, policies around female-related issues, domestic abuse. If a staff was suffering from domestic abuse, for example, what are the policies that the organization would have in place to support them? But what I believe is really important as well, amongst many other things, is about the gender audit. And when I say gender audit, it's about organizations being transparent enough to say, okay, these are the number of women we have in the workplace, and these are the number of women in the workplace who are at senior leadership position. The truth is, when we look at the statistics, a lot more women are in education. And when I say education, they have structured learnings that they've gone through. But then when it comes to promotion, when it comes to positions in the workplace, you find just very little. So I'll give you statistics, for example. And this is because there's been a lot of gender equality policies that have been put in place. So in the FTSE 100, 40% of female board members are women now, which is really good. But however, this is another bit that we need to talk about as women who are in diaspora. And that's the question you asked me earlier. As a Black woman, let's call it what it is. As a Black woman, what are the challenges that we have faced? Right. There are lots of challenges. That we have imposter syndrome. A lot of us have to battle through things. And we have 1%, just 1% of Black women who are in top positions in politics.
I'm so glad we're talking about strategies and also politics and now it takes us to affirmative action, right? And I'm going to come to you, Ms. Joi John, for this one. The eradication of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And a part of it is for women and also for people of color. And in this case, immigrant and Black, right? And so yes. in the US that you're at, when you see this type of, programs who are supposed to advance equity and inclusion being rolled back, what does this mean for the future of women and younger women who's coming up and aspire to be greater, but the systemic barriers just seems to be holding them back?
Well, I really don't want to focus on on what it is at this moment, because the United States, or America as a whole, is a land that has that thrives on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I think when when we zone into Women's Month or around women, I think we need to foster a two-way exchange of knowledge, mentorship, and resources. When we talk about women supporting women, let's not wait for that 1 month in the year to, do so under a theme. We have to look into creating platforms for collaboration online and offline as well. I believe that we can amplify our collective impact by doing so. Share experiences and advocate for policies that support gender equality and inclusion across the continent. It doesn't end with where you work. It starts from what you're in control of. We can start from home, and when we talk about accelerating action, for me, it's a call to share knowledge openly, Judith. Mentor those coming behind us. I talked about people pulling away the seat from the table. No, let's mentor the younger ones. Let's mentor the girl child. Challenge systems that hold the women back. And most importantly, I think, take action. Take action now. The time for incremental challenge is over. Oh, let's do this now, and then next year we'll look into this. No, we need to harness our collective power and experiences, wisdom, to create the lasting change that we're seeking.
Well, thank you for that. In terms of harnessing and channeling and just throwing back the ladder for the women, the younger women. And so I have to come to you, Councillor Lade, as we end this discussion. How can there be a synergy between the women on the continent and the women in the diaspora for knowledge share? Quickly, because we're out of time. Councillor. Councillor Lade, you have the floor.
Okay, sorry, I didn't, the line went off. I didn't hear your question.
I was asking about a synergy. I was asking, because she was talking about knowledge share with the women on the continent. So I was asking about a synergy. How can we get to a point where there's a synergy between the women in the diaspora and women back here on the continent, where the younger generation and even, of the same, level can be able to share, knowledge share and just be in sync for the purpose of accelerating growth?
Thank you very much for that question. This is where what we all went through about 5 years ago comes into play. It's leveraging technology. This is really important. It's the fact that now there's so many opportunities where we can do a lot of things virtually. This is the three of us here talking from 3 different continents.
Locations,
and that's what we need to key into. Yes. Different locations, 3 different continents: United Kingdom, Europe, and America and Africa. And it's really important for us to leverage in the power of technology. It's about creating networking platforms that can be done virtually, that can be online. There are remote job opportunities. It's about opening those things up. But more importantly is joint advocacy that I think is really important. I am here, Joi is over there, you are over there. The strength of our coming together would go a long way. We should not stand alone and think that we can do it alone. I'm here, I'm Nigerian here, but however, I believe that I have a part to play in Nigeria. I have my learned experience that I can share with people. I have opportunities to mentor people remotely. They don't have to be side by side with me. There's quite a lot of cross-border collaboration that can be done, and we can leverage on technology to bridge the gap.
No, and just bridge the gap indeed. I mean, when I think about the people that I wish to mentor me, not only are they here in Nigeria, there's a plethora of them, and also they're scattered on the continents that you're at. But ladies, I must say thank you so much. It's an honor to speak to you today, and happy International Women's Day to both of you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Judith.
Wishing you the same.
Thank you.
Thank you.